Welcome back. Today we're going to go over the newly released PBS distance Lerp materials. They're great for geographical and positional based interactions with gadgets, avatars, and worlds within Neos. These have just been released, so things involving them are still in development by the community as they learn how it works, etc. But I'm going to show you how it works through an example object that we'll recreate. So let's get started. Here's my example object. It's available in my public folder under art, as I believe it qualifies as art. I called it the bulge wall. I really didn't know what to name it, so apologies for that weird name. But if I get close to this wall with my left hand, you'll see that a red sphere starts coming out, bulging out of the wall, you might say, with my left hand. And with my right hand, we get a blue sphere. If I do both at once, we get pink in the middle, and I can move these around. We can go anywhere on the surface of the wall. That's the object that we're going to create. Let's get started. As we go, I'm going to give some notes and hints and tricks, etc. For this material, and a couple of sort of warnings as well. So let's get started. To do this, we're going to first of all create the material. So for that, I'm going to equip my material tooltip here, and I'm going to go to Create New on the material tooltip, PBS, and then PBS Distance Lerp Metallic. There is a specular version if specular is your thing, but we're using metallic today, and that creates the material. The material has standard properties like albedo texture, normal maps, emissive maps, occlusion maps, all that sort of good stuff. If you're familiar with setting up an avatar or an object with a PBS material, then you should be right at home with those properties. It's when you get below the occlusion map that stuff starts going a little bit weirder. So what we're going to do first of all is set the albedo color here to black, which was the color of my wall, and then we're going to go ahead and set the displacement magnitude 2 to 1. That's all we need to do right now, because I actually want to get the wall involved and talk a little bit about displacement as we do that. So to create the wall, I'm going to go to my developer tooltip and go to Create New 3D Model Grid, and this creates a grid mesh. Now, this might be unfamiliar to some of you. A grid mesh is a mesh which has a more denser UV set to it. Not UV, sorry, I mean actually vertices. So you'll see here that this has tries that go across the whole grid. If I were to do the same thing on a quad, you'll see here that the quad is just 2 tries, 1, 2. That's why we use the grid mesh, and that's because displacement only works when you have a dense packed collection of vertices. With the grid set up, we need to adjust it a little bit to make it just a little bit more awesome. The points property of the grid controls how many tries occur on the grid. So I'm going to just bump that up to 100. Don't go crazy here, there are performance implications. And I'm going to bump the size up to 5. There we go. Now I'm going to set the material of the grid to be the Lerp material that we've created. I'm not going to use the material tooltip to do this, and that's because it's an inadvisable idea. Here's a quick tip to put the material in your material tooltip. You'll thank me later. It gets a bit crazy once things start working. So now you'll see that the wall is black, and we can actually just close the inspector for the grid for now. So let's hook up something so you can see how the material works. So I'm going to go ahead to the list of points here, and I'm going to hit add, and you'll see that there is a position property. I'm going to go ahead and hook this up to my left hand. To do this, what we're going to do is grab our logics tooltip. There is logics involved here, and we're going to go to node browser, and I'm going to go to users, and we'll need a local user node. This will return the user who's observing the wall in this case. So this should work with multiple users in the world. Obviously I'm the only person here, but I'm going to take this piece of art to a public world once I'm done here. And just double check that. And then we're going to need to go to avatar, and we're going to need to go to body node slot and spawn that in the world. Body node slot will return the slot for a body part of my user. So I'm going to hook local user into body node slot. I'm going to pull out body node slot's second property and push secondary to spawn this node. This we're going to hit right arrow till we get to left controller, and then we're going to leave it alone. And you'll see that this gets my left body node. I think I moved the grid there. I'll try not to grab it. I should have set it ungrabbable. Okay, I'm going to set it ungrabbable quickly. There we go. Once we've got the body node slot here, we're going to need a couple more nodes. We're going to go to transform, and we're going to get the global transform and plug that in. What this does is it gets the global transform of my left controller. Then we're going to go ahead and grab an updating relay. This is another tip here. Updating relays do have a performance implication on them, so don't use too many of them. And when you use them, be sure that you absolutely need them. You need them here because this position property doesn't update a sufficient rate or cadence to be suitable for this material, but do be careful. Then over here on the points list, we're going to grab the word position and push secondary, and you'll see that we get this point interface. I'm going to put the updating relay into the position here, and that's all that's needed to start this off. You'll see here that the material ball itself is getting white with emission and larger when I approach it. What I'm actually going to do for the rest of the tutorial is just move the ball off to the side. It becomes distracting. That's also why you don't put it in your material tooltip, because otherwise it's always going to be close to your left hand, so it's always going to be at the maximum displacement. Now I'm going to walk up to the wall, and you'll see here that I've already got the bulging effect from the beginning of the video. I'm going to go back to the inspector here, and I'm going to go ahead and set the tint here to red. And now approach the wall, and you'll see we've got a red hand going. When I get close, red. We're going to go ahead and add another point here. So I'll add another one here. We're going to grab this, and then we're going to copy this setup just down. So all the nodes, updating relay, body node slot. And here we're going to set this one to right controller, plug in the same local user, you don't need to make a new one, and then plug updating relay into position there. And now you'll see that both of them are updating. You can then approach the wall, and you'll see, oh, we forgot to set the other one to blue, so let's set this other one to blue. And now we can approach, and you'll see blue sphere, red sphere, and then I merge them together, we get the pink sphere. That's all there is to it. The rest of the video, I'm going to talk about some sort of hints and tips involving this and a plea as well. So first of all, the hint with this is if you want to do non-distance-based displacement, like you know, you want the displacement to be driven by, I don't know, trigonometry, time, some other mathematical function, or a displacement map, or some sort of terrain system, then please check out the link in the video description for a video that I did on the PBS displace metallic. Displace metallic will allow you to displace it a lot more statically, but you can also drive that displacement using logics. You can make objects that kind of react to timing or events, or you know, all sorts of stuff there. Don't use the distance one to do displacement if you don't need to, basically. There is a performance cost for tracking all these positions. And then the second point is, please don't use this everywhere. It's a great, cool material, but I'm already seeing cases where I approach someone's avatar and it like grows and expands and I can't see, and it's really distracting. Be careful on the emission as well. I basically don't want Neos to come into a point where basically every time I approach something, this sort of stuff happens, because I don't want to like be bombarded with you know, vertices appearing in my eyes and emission and stuff like that. Use it in places which are cool. Use it in places basically use it responsibly, and in places where it makes sense artistically. So like a dance map, which is the original request that occurred for Next, would be a great place. You can do that. You know, dance movements can then affect the world and affect all the sort of lights and stuff in that, but don't use it in sort of, you know, yieldy map like this one. It would not be suitable for. I could set the entire terrain of the map to respond to my position, but that just wouldn't be ideal. And then the other problem is to make sure that you're keeping an eye on your points here. I've used local user here, so this should work for any user. Some of the early examples I saw for this only worked for one user, or they only worked for one object, and it was difficult to sort of duplicate the object or make the material work once that user had left. So think about that. Use something that is always going to be there. That's all I've got for you. I'm sure more best practices will appear as this material is used more. There's a few properties I haven't gone over. Feel free to experiment with them. You can do things such as negative displacement. I will do that one quickly. If you set displace magnitude from to -1 here, then it'll go in. That's a bit hard to see unless you go to the edge of the wall, and you'll see here that it's bulging inwards. Like I said, you can find this wall in my public folder under art as well. I'm going to sign off as this is a bit of a long video. Thank you for listening. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments section. Otherwise, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.